Welcome back to day 5 of Composition Camp. I'm excited you're here today because I have some cool stuff for you. First, I want you to compose a song for flute. Real simple, it's only 2 measures. I want it to sound like a bird. So maybe you need some inspiration. So where do you go? Go to the outside, go to the park. Go anywhere you can hear a bird, okay? Lots of composers do this. Beethoven, I know for example, would take long walks in the countryside so he would be inspired by the sounds of nature. If you don't believe me, go and listen to his 6th symphony. It's called the Pastoral Symphony, meaning, the countryside. And so that you can hear bird sounds in it. You can hear, chipmunks maybe, or the wind in the trees, things like that. And lots of fun to hear, and his inspiration coming from nature. And I want you to be inspired by the things around you too, for the way you compose music. Second of all, we're going to do another orchestration today. Yesterday we did a variation on a theme by Yankee Doodle. Today I wrote out a song, it's one of the variations that Beethoven wrote out on a Swiss folk song. And in it, what you're going to do is you're going to take it and arrange it for certain instruments. So you get to be creative, and we're going to learn more about instruments today with that. Learning about the orchestra, learning about how to write for different instruments is such an important part of what we're doing here this week. And I hope you're having fun doing it and exploring different sounds and combinations. One of the key things to really explore with the orchestration is the sounds that different instruments get when they play together. If you take like an oboe and a French horn, for example, well, what does that sound like? Okay, it's a different sound than just an oboe or just a French horn. It combines together to make something unique. And so that's one of the fun things that we're really doing with all this orchestration stuff. So keep watching and have fun today. Day 4's creative challenge is to compose a song that sounds like a bird song. A lot of different composers have used different instruments and different rhythms and things like that to imitate the songs of birds. One of the most famous is Peter and the Wolf. The bird is one of the characters in the story, and he plays a very prominent part in the story. So you always get this little theme from the flute that's for the bird, and so it gets played many, many times throughout the music. Beethoven also, in the 6th symphony in particular, composed some parts that sound a lot like birds. I think Wagner also composed some parts that sound like birds. Mozart in the Magic Flute composed some parts of the music that really sound like birds. And so I thought it'd be fun if you could explore the way woodwinds sound and work by also composing some songs for birds. So if you need some inspiration, go outside and listen to the birds. That's always a great way to do it. I know Beethoven would take walks in the countryside and to find inspiration before he lost his hearing. And so I give you a little example here. Let's listen to it. And this one is pretty simple and pretty straightforward, but it might be a little challenging. So try and compose your own bird song in these 2 measures here. Again, this is for flute, and so you have to use some of the higher notes. If you go above the staff, that's perfectly okay. Flutes can play, and they probably prefer to play above the staff more than they prefer to play from the middle line on down. In fact, don't go below middle C in this one. Because flutes don't play low notes, they play high notes. And so have fun with that and just see what you can create that sounds like a bird. Something that's fun to do with composition is to create your own orchestration of certain songs. For this one, you're going to orchestrate the song called a Swiss Variations on a Swiss Song. It's by Beethoven. He wrote this as a piano piece, and it sounds, I think, pretty neat. And so I think it would sound even better though with woodwinds. And so again, we're kind of ending the week here experimenting with using woodwind instruments to compose with. And so we have to take into consideration a few things as we do this. I'll talk about them as we do it. Now, a couple things about this one. We're taking the right hand and the left hand parts, and we're going to put them into 3 different instruments. Now remember, wind instruments can only play 1 note at a time. And so you cannot, for example, right here, play an F and a C at the same time for a flute player or a clarinet or a bassoon player. And so you have to figure out how to orchestrate it in a way that makes sense for each instrument. Now, let's talk a little bit about this. The melody is really right here. It goes C, F, G, A, F, C, G, F. Let's hear it, in fact. And so that's the melody. You can kind of hear it. It's actually a minor sound. I thought it sounded pretty cool. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the melody, and I'm actually going to give it to, well, I'm going to give it to the clarinet, because that's a very good range for the clarinet. Now, when you do this, you may choose to do something else. You may choose to give it to the bassoon. You may choose the flute. It's up to you. That's how you get to be creative, even when you're using orchestration to compose. It's obviously not your melody, it's Beethoven's, but we can still be creative in how we orchestrate it into different instruments. Then what I'm going to do, obviously I'm going to play this one in the bassoon, just because it's kind of the lowest one. Now, bassoon cannot play that note, so I'm going to just repeat it since it's a C. And then I'm going to do the F up here. Okay, then I have one more part to do. It's this part that kind of alternates F, C, E, C, A, C, F, C, like that. And I'm going to actually give that to the flute. I'm going to put it, but I'm also going to put it an octave higher. Those notes would be really, really low for the flute. So instead of playing the F down here, I'm going to put it an octave higher. Now, if you don't have as much experience reading music and to be able to transpose it that quickly, let me show you a trick. I'm going to write it like it says, even though the flute would have a really hard time playing these notes. It also doesn't sound quite as good on the flute either. And so what I'm gonna do, I wrote it out just as it is up here, and I'm gonna use my arrow key until I get up an octave. An octave is 8 notes above. Remember, it starts on 1, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I always teach my students octave is like octopus. It has 8 legs, or an octagon. It has 8 sides. And so you can continue with this now. You can either do it down here or up here. I'm going to do it up here now. All right, now here's what I want to do. I want to hear it back. Now I already heard the piano part. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to where it says sound, a little off the screen, find the mixer, and to mute the piano part, I just unclick it. Okay. If I did that, it would only play the piano part, but I want to just undo the little box. Close that up, and let's hear this. So hey, not too bad. Okay, now you can be creative. Maybe the next time you want to put the melody in the bassoon or something like that, and then this part could be in the clarinet or the flute. Doesn't matter. Just put it in a range that sounds good and that the instrument can play. For clarinet, you don't want to go too far below maybe A, and for flute, definitely don't go below C. Probably the F on the bottom of the staff is the lowest they would really want to go. Bassoon, try not to go too far below the staff. Maybe the low F would be about as low as they can go. Have fun with this one. It's just a great way to learn about music by taking the masters like Beethoven and putting them into different forms and different ways of expressing their musical ideas. Have fun.